Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Lexi DIY, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are in the laundry room, and don't worry, guys, we are in the home stretch. Now, we're not going to be finishing it today, but we are so much closer. Now, this is totally not sponsored, but I saw an ad for this Ari event on Facebook, and it just looked so much better than the normal ones. So I decided, let's give it a try. It was I think $15 on Amazon. It was a little rough to get the screws in, but otherwise super easy, and it definitely looks really good. I still have to paint it, but we'll get to that. Then I took off the hardware to the door that was already in the laundry room. Now, I do want to replace this door. It is a solid wood door, and that's great, but it's not fire rated for the garage and sealed properly. So if we were to park our cars in here and start them, the gases could get into the house, and we just don't want that. But they're pretty pricey, so we don't even park our stuff in the garage anyway. We'll definitely be swapping it out, but for right now, we're just going to use this one. So I cleaned it all off, and then I put some wood filler in the million holes that were up at the top of this, and we're going to wait for that to dry. While we wait for that to dry, we're going to go ahead and move on to a different part. Now, I'm not sure why I chose to paint the inside casing of the doors before I put the trim back on, because I am going to be painting them the same color. But, that's how my brain was functioning that day, so that's what I did. But you can see how much of a huge difference it's already making to have even just the inside casing of these doorways white with just one coat, which we're gonna obviously do more, but it's looking so much better already. And now it's time to add the trim. So I measured everything out beforehand, and then I just grabbed my chop saw. Now I'm using 2.5-inch trim for the outside of the doors, and I am cutting them at a 45. Now, since I'm using Craftsman trim, I could have just cut them straight and put it straight across, but personally I think that door and window trim looks better when it's mitered, so that's what I decided to go with. Now, I always buy extra trim because I find that generally I make a miscut, but somehow this time I did a really great job. So look at me doing math and measuring. Since I was putting this up alone, what I did was I put some painter's tape in place to make sure that everything fit together. And then you're like, Lexi, why are you taking it all down? You just put it up. Yes, that's because I have one more door to do, and I'm just going to, instead of having to measure everything twice, I'm just going to use these ones as a guide to mark where I need to cut the trim for my other door. Work smarter, not harder, let me tell you. Then it was time, obviously, to just cut that trim for the other side, which was super quick since I already had my templates. Highly recommend doing it that way, especially if you're gonna have more than 2 doors. But then I took everything back inside and I put it up with painter's tape again so that it would hold in place while I was nailing it in. Totally don't remember if I've even mentioned it, but obviously we have a new washer and dryer in here, and I will touch a little bit more on those later. Not sponsored or anything, I just did a lot of research on which ones I wanted, and these are the Maytag Pet Pro ones. They were pretty pricey, I'm not gonna lie, but so far we're really loving them because they have this little special thing that catches the pet hair and gets it out of your washer and your dryer and all of your clothes, and it has been such a game changer for us. Once the first door was done, then it was time to do the second one, and luckily everything did work out using my template, so that was very relieving. Again, I just put it up with painter's tape, and then I went in with my brad nailer and nailed it in. We decided, let's go ahead and take out the washer and dryer for now so that it's easier for me to get to this back wall, because I needed to do all of the baseboards, and I do plan on tiling this wall behind here, so it just made more sense for us to pull them out. We've gotten so much use out of these already because we didn't have a washer or dryer for literally months, and we still have loads of laundry that we gotta do, but that's okay. The laundry room will be done soon. I was a little nervous about this. We have a gas dryer. I am not a fan of gas appliances, they freak me out. But luckily Dustin was like, don't worry, I can turn off the gas. It's not a big deal. It's okay. So he did that, and then he took out the dryer for me. And then it was time to start cutting my baseboards. Now, I did measure all of these beforehand, and in between these cuts, I am going inside and placing them up against the wall, making sure that they all fit together and that I don't need to make more cuts. Generally with baseboards, especially ones that have a more intricate design, you're gonna want to miter the corners in at a 45. But since I'm doing this like straight across craftsman type baseboard, I was like, I am not taking the time to like figure out all the angles and do all of that when it's going to look the same if I just put them up against each other, because I'm going to be caulking everything and making it look seamless anyway. So that is just a preference for me, but I understand if maybe you want to do mitered corners. Anyway, it was time to go ahead and fill those nail holes with just some wood filler and make sure that this starts to look a little bit more finished. Now you can see that there is some slight gapping in areas where the floor and the baseboards meet. That's because my tile isn't 100% level. That's pretty normal, and we're going to definitely fix that, so don't you fret. Then I just filled all of the holes on the door trim, and I did fill those corners. Hopefully that's gonna look good, but yeah, pretty simple. And I like using this pink one because it starts off pink and then it dries down to like a more wood looking color once it's ready to sand. Speaking of ready to sand, the wood filler on my door that goes to the garage was ready to be sanded down, so we just went ahead, gave that a sand, and then of course wiped all of the excess dust and everything off. Now, if I was keeping this door and I needed it to be, you know, really durable forever, I would have sanded it and then done this primer, but I don't got time for that. We are going to just be using this shellac based primer, and as you can see, it comes like in a weird consistency. It smells really bad, but it works really great to make sure there's not as much scratching and that wood, like the tannins don't come through. So you want to mix it up really, really good, and then I'm applying it with my tiny little foam roller. I love, love, love the tiny little foam roller, even though it's probably not the quickest thing to get this door done. I just think that it gives a really nice finish, so it's my personal preference, but really you can use whatever roller that you want. This is going to block all of that staining from coming through. You can do 2 coats if you have a more, you know, particularly pesty door, but if you want to paint your cabinets, this is the primer that I highly, highly, highly recommend, because it's like really sticky and it dries pretty hard. While that primer is drying, I am going to sand down those holes that I filled in my baseboards so that we can finally get to painting them. Well, we have to caulk them first, but I did in fact come through and like wipe them off and everything afterwards and vacuum to make sure there was no dust, but I didn't show that. Then I started to caulk the bottom, and I was like, oh my gosh, it looks so busted. I should have put tape down. So basically I like scraped it all out, and I was like, I already have this ready to go, so like let's just caulk the top part of it while we're here. So I did that, and then I run over it with like a damp paper towel or like a damp finger. I think it gets better results when you do a damp finger, but I hate the way it feels, I'm gonna be honest. Off camera, I taped all of the baseboards so that I would get that clean line. I left like a little tiny space between the baseboard and the floor tile so that it would, I don't know, it would fill it. I don't know how to describe what I'm saying, but basically I just did the same thing all the way around, and then I pulled off the tape after I was done. Now, I really could have just waited 10 minutes, or 20 minutes, I'm sorry, kept the tape on and then painted. I don't know why I took it off, because I ended up having to retape anyway. I guess I was scared that the caulking was going to dry, because it says it's ready to paint in 20 minutes. And I knew I had to do 2 coats on the baseboard, so I was like, is it gonna rip everything up? You know, if I wait like in between coats? It probably wouldn't have. It would have probably been fine, but you know, I don't know. That's just where we're at. So learn from my mistakes. I'm gonna use the same paint that I use on the trim on the door, so everything looks seamless. So I'm using a high gloss paint from Behr. It's in the color Frost, and again, using my tiny little foam roller because I just like the way that it looks. Now, you're definitely gonna have to do 2 coats because you can see the roller marks if it's not super opaque, and you're gonna probably have to do that with any paint. But yeah, while that dried, then I went in and I did the trim around the doors. I did the first coat on that. I'm using my brush to get around the edges because I didn't feel like taping, and then I'm using the tiny little foam roller to do the fronts so it looks like that airbrushed, like sprayed kind of finish. I'm doing the same thing with the baseboards. I didn't feel like taping the top, so I'm using my favorite trim brush, which is my Wooster Shortcut brush. And then I am going over it with my tiny little foam roller. Now, when I said sprayed, I meant like if you had a paint sprayer, and I do have one and I could have done it. I just don't like using it in small spaces because it seems like more of a hassle than it's worth when the room is smaller like this. And I would have had to like tape off all the walls and everything. And so that, yeah, that's why I'm using my foam roller, because it pretty much gives like the same effect, like very smooth, very beautiful. But you do need the brushes to kind of like get in the corners, because obviously your foam roller probably can't get all the way in the corner. You can smush it, but it's not going to look as good, if that makes sense. And I will be caulking the sides of this casing. I definitely forgot to do that because I was doing a million things, and also I was like nearing the end and I didn't have any left, so I was like, I'll do it later. So we painted it first, but I am going to be caulking it, don't worry. I don't know why, but watching this back is very soothing. Like, I just love the tiny little foam roller. It's my best friend. Anyway, I went ahead and did 1 coat of black paint on this window. Now, I did do the casing while the trim was off on purpose, because the casing is going to be black and the trim is going to be white and match the rest of it, like I did on a lot of other windows in the house so far. Now, I did do 2 coats, but I only ended up showing 1 because honestly, guys, that's the real transformation, is that first coat. It pretty much covered it, but a second coat was necessary. Also, don't paint your windows shut. Then I added some new hinges to the door because we've been rocking without this door for a few days now. It's so heavy though, so we were kind of struggling to get it in. And yes, I did only paint one side of it because it was heavy and I couldn't flip it over myself. And honestly, I just really want to get this project done because it's been taking forever. We put it up on some weights so that Dustin wouldn't have to like hold it an inch off the floor, because like I said, this door was freaking heavy, guys. And then we just put the hinges back on, just screwed everything in, and then I did have to mess with it a little bit to get it level, but y'all don't need to see all that. And then I put on a new doorknob, and you guys, this is coming together so good. We still have a lot to do, but I can see the finish line, so I'm gonna give you just a quick before and after, and I'll see you guys next week.